This is House Chaplain Pat Conroy opening up the House on this past Thursday.
In your most holy name, I now cast out all spirits of darkness from this chamber, spirits not from you.
Casting out spirits. Now, he's reading a prayer. Obviously, you have things written out, and maybe they have to be approved. I'm not sure about that, or if they had to be approved to approve them. But I don't know this gentleman at all, but he closes his eyes, and he seems very focused as he's praying. And this was after a tremendous week of division and battles between reps and the president and different things. And obviously our nation getting torn apart in many different ways. And here you're going there thinking, okay, we're supposed to be doing business for the good of the people of America. And here we're getting torn apart by division. So he continues his prayer. Listen to what he says.
I cast out the spirit of discouragement, which deadens the hope of those who are of good will. I cast out the spirit of petty divisiveness, which clouds the sense and the desire to be of fruitful productivity in addressing the issues more appropriately before this House. I cast out any sadness brought on by the frustration of dealing with matters detrimental to the honorable work each member has been called to engage in.
All right, now here's what's interesting. Article in CNN. House Chaplain prays to cast spirits of darkness from Congress. The article states, at times, Conroy's prayer sounded strikingly similar to the Catholic Church's old rite of exorcism, in which a priest cast unclean spirits from a possessed person. In a brief interview afterward, Conroy said the echo was intentional. But he added that his prayer, which he wrote himself, was more inspired by traditional blessings for homes or other buildings. I want your servants here in the house with a healing balm to comfort and renew the souls of all in this assembly, Conroy prayed. May your spirit of wisdom and patience descend upon us all, so that any spirit of darkness might have no place in our midst. Conroy told CNN, I was on the House floor on Tuesday, and to me it felt different than other days. It felt like there was something going on beyond just political disagreement. The energy of the House was very off. No one was relishing what was happening. End of the page. While Conroy often invokes God to provide wisdom and aid to House members, he rarely mentions the darker side of the supernatural. Interesting. He felt like there was something going on, something demonic. Now, I noticed in a thread to President Trump, not quite sure how I saw this, that a gentleman goes by the name of Representative Stephen Smith. I just read an article saying the thing doesn't exist. It's just an internet sham. Anyway, listed as an elected representative in Georgia. He got involved in a thread to the president, and he tweeted. This was the tweet that he posted in this thread. There are a lot of evil spirits in this world, sir. There are a lot of evil spirits in this world. And it's a link to my interview that aired last week with Sid Roth, focused on the new book, Jezebel's War with America, where we expose demonic entities out to destroy the nation. Only book I've written, more than 35 books now, that focuses in particular on what the enemy is doing, and we connect the dots spiritually to recognize the demonic spirits we're up against. And that shouldn't surprise you. That shouldn't stun you, because the Bible clearly talks about demonic activity, and we see it all over during the ministry of Jesus. We see it in the book of Acts, and the letters write about, the epistles write about. For example, Ephesians, the 6th chapter. Ephesians chapter 6, beginning in verse 10, Paul tells us to be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power, and to put on the full armor of God so that you're able to stand against the schemes of the devil. He writes, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the worldly forces of this darkness, and against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to resist when the times are evil, and after you have done everything, to stand firm. The same way he writes to the Corinthians. And in 2 Corinthians 10, he's talking about, look, although we walk in this world, all right, verse 3, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not wage war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not fleshly, but powerful through God for the tearing down of strongholds. We're tearing down false arguments and every high-minded thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. We're taking every thought captive to the obedience of Messiah, ready to punish all disobedience whenever your obedience is complete. So yes, it's an intellectual battle. We're pulling down intellectual strongholds, but it is a spiritual battle. So this this Twitter account linked to the interview with Sid Roth. I want to play a few clips for you. We'll start with number 3. This was from my interview with Sid Roth last week as we talked about the spirit of Jezebel, meaning the same demonic powers that operated through Jezebel operating today. Even the war on gender that we see, that Bruce Jenner is Woman of the Year. So we're fighting all these different things. We're trying to put out a fire here and a fire there. It's the same demonic power. It's the same coalition of demonic forces that work through Jezebel, that intimidate with fear, that silence the prophetic voice. The real tragedy is that Jezebel intimidated the prophets by killing them, and we're not even getting killed, and we're intimidated because we don't want to be unfriended on Facebook. Yeah, that's part of what we're dealing with, that intimidation by fear. And here it's not a knife to our throats. It's not a bullet, a gun to our heads. It's just a little societal intimidation, and we're paralyzed. We're backing down. All right, number 4, as I continue in my interview last week with Sid Roth. Part of the intensity of writing it was the quotes, the shocking things. I go back to what the pagans used to do, the baby killing, the child killing, and what we understand, sacrificing babies to Moloch and what it looked like with the giant statue and the steel, and they'd heat up the steel and put the babies on it. And then you compare that to late-term abortion. You compare that to infanticide. We have this horrific evil taking place, and we're afraid to speak because we don't want to offend someone. If that's not the intimidation of Jezebel, I don't know what is. Yeah, and friends, we look around in the society. Do I have time to play this yet? Let's play clip number 5. I want to open this up a little more fully from my interview last week with Sid. The new book, Jezebel's War with America. All right, let's listen and watch. Jehu in the Bible, what does it say? He drives recklessly. Some translations, drives like a madman or a maniac. But he did a lot of good. He was zealous for the cause of God, but there was a lot of collateral damage. So you may love the president, but either way, you see this parallel. A Jehu kind of character, an alpha male kind of character. And when he comes on the scene, Jezebel rises up again. And he's the one who ultimately takes Jezebel down. And I document the parallels between Jehu and Trump in the book. And here's what got my attention. When you have someone like Trump, again, whether you like him or not, everyone sees the kind of guy he is, it brings Jezebel up. So the moment President Trump is in, you have this women's march. It's not just lovely women that just, no, blow up the White House. And then you also have with it the extreme baby killing spirit. Again, we're not talking about someone that struggled and wrestled and should have an abortion. We're talking about shout your abortion. We're talking about pounding on the Supreme Court.
In your face.
Yeah, during the Kavanaugh hearings, what's happened is Trump's pro-life stance, one an unlikely champion of the pro-life movement, and appointing these justices and laws being passed, it's bringing out, they're saying, this is war. We're going to fight. We're going to take it to the streets. So it's almost as if Jezebel came out from hiding, and there she is for everyone to see. Now, here's the remarkable thing, because we're not talking about a person. We're talking about demonic spirits. We're talking about demons. We're talking about principalities, right? So Jehu sees Jezebel. She tries to seduce him. Once again, there she is, that seductress. And he says, who's on my side? And it says there are 2 or 3 eunuchs. So these are castrated males, 2 or 3 eunuchs, and they throw Jezebel down. Sid, that's what has to happen. The castrated males, the men who've had their authority stripped from them. Friends, you figure this out how you want to, but there are intercessors, a group of intercessors who felt burdened to pray for the release of the Jezebel book to have a national impact. And they are now in the midst of the first of 3 days of prayer and fasting. And I just went to look on Amazon out of curiosity to see where the ratings are, where the pre-sales are for the book. And suddenly, out of the blue, this has jumped way higher than it's ever been. I mean, it's number one in several categories now on Amazon, but with a massive jump. Is this prayer, fasting? Is this something spiritual going on? We'll be right back and talk about the devil, demons, and our authority over them in Jesus' name.